Hello and welcome back to the Living on Lemonade podcast. I'm your host, Lauren. I'm so excited to be back. I've been thinking about this episode and wanting to record it so badly lately, but I have had back-to-back colds. It's been one hell of a spring for me. And I think just emotionally, physically, I've been so drained and just purging. And I'm finally, I think, on the upswing, fingers crossed. So one of the reasons I wasn't recording was not only was I not feeling well, but my voice was kind of off and super stuffy. So I still have a bit of congestion. So I'm hoping I don't have to cough or have a tickle throughout this. So bear with me, and I appreciate your patience and understanding. Now, today I want to touch on a bit of a different topic. There's still some grief involved, but it's not your typical after a death grief, but it is still very much grief in its own way. And I want to just bring some awareness to it because there are so many different kinds of grief that I don't think we always realize that we're grieving something because like if it's not the death of a loved one, right? So I want to bring you up to this is after my grandpa passed away. Now, between the time he passed away in 2006 and when I'm going to talk about, I had various other losses, great aunts and stuff like that. Nothing as profound as those first three losses of my friend Nicole, Chrissy the cat, and my grandpa. But I lost, a couple friends and a couple more family members. So I really mean it when I say I spent my teenage years grieving. It was just a really tough time. And I was in grade 11 when my grandpa died, so I was 16, and actually May 1st was 17 years since he passed away. So we just passed that anniversary a couple days ago. Where was I on Monday? I was home for a bit and then I went to my mom. So it was nice to be with her on that day. And it was a bit of a strange one because it was, it's that anniversary where I reflected and thought about how I have been missing my grandpa longer than I knew him. And that's kind of super strange, right? So, there's depth to many different anniversaries for different reasons and stuff like that, but that one's always one that kind of hits the heart a little bit harder and a little bit deeper. I was okay and I am okay and I still cry about him, and the thing about grief, especially after it's more long term, is you can't really anticipate when you're going to cry. I don't cry every anniversary. I always think about him. I always take time to reflect and just kind of take inventory on that. And what's happened all these years that I've missed him for, but it doesn't necessarily mean I cry, but then there could be a random day and I'm doing something and I just wish he was there, and then the silent tears run down my face. So it's strange that way. Grief is just so complex in so many different ways. I can't talk tonight. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I want to bring us forward to a very pivotal time in my life. And this is really ended up being a catalyst for big change, and it really drove me into my first self reflection, self awareness, and personal development era, I would say. So I'll back up a little bit because I'm going to talk to you about my first relationship and some stuff around that. I'm not going to go into full details. I want to protect the identity of my first boyfriend, and so I'm not going to say his name. But anyone and so far I have a pretty small audience, so you probably know me and you probably know him, but that's okay. But for privacy's sake, I'm not going to go. And I don't need to rehash any of the bad stuff. I just want to at this point, I think when we move through things and past things and we learn the lessons, that's what's important to kind of take away and to talk about afterwards so that we can help other people who are going through similar things so that they can navigate a little bit easier. So this person who was my first love, I guess that's probably, yeah, one of the best ways to put it. I met him when I was 14. I went to one cadet camp in my whole cadet career, and it was not a camp I would have ever chosen. It was Introduction to Rifle Coaching, which is basically we shot air rifles for 3 weeks and we learned how to teach others how to shoot air rifles. So it was pretty cool. I met some lifelong friends. My friend Kat and I are still like besties. She's one of those friends where it doesn't matter how long we go without communicating or seeing each other. We pick up whenever we see each other, we pick up as if no time has passed and we just pick up where we left off. And they're just the best kind. She's soul family to me. She showed up at my dad's celebration of life. She drove 6 hours round trip to be there, and I had just seen her, like, the day before because we went to a David Gray concert in Toronto, and I spent the night. So it was just when people show up for you that way, it's there's really no words to show my gratitude, and I'm so glad I went to that random camp that year and met her and so many other people I still touch base with every once in a while and see them all grown up and with their own families. It's so beautiful. But I'm getting sidetracked. So I met this person at cadet camp. I was like, I just fell for them so quickly. He's from Quebec, so he had a French accent, and that's really the first time I kind of hung out with. We call them the Frenchies, right? Because they're from Quebec. They're the French speaking friends. And ever since then, I was just kind of head over heels. I was 14 at the time, almost 15. It was the summer right before Chrissy died. So I was there in August, I think. Yeah, July into mid-August. It was a 3-week course. And then Chrissy died at the end of September. So she was sick that summer. But I was out west and then went to cadet camp and then went to my normal camp for a week after that. So we didn't see the full decline with her until, yeah, until kind of the summer craziness went away. But I digress. So where should I go with this next? I met him at this camp. I started writing him letters because he lived in Quebec, and I would write him letters probably weekly. Now, I never got letters back. So, but I wasn't doing it to get letters back. I think for me it was almost a form of journaling and just kind of keeping the friendship and stuff. He didn't feel the same way about me at that time, which that's okay. And down the road, he said he had feelings for me, and he actually came to visit me for an entire week in 2006. I was 16 at the time. He came from Quebec for the week. We had such a blast. He even came to school with me because I was still in high school. And this would have been after my grandpa passed. Yeah, my grandpa would have passed in May, and he came in September at the beginning of my school year, my grade 12 year, I believe. Yes, grade 12. Sorry, I'm just like thinking out loud. So yeah, he came to like cadets with me and band with cadets and badminton, and we had so much fun. And then when I was teaching piano, because my first job was when I was 16, I taught piano lessons. So the night I had to teach piano, my dad took him around my hometown and just gave him a tour and stuff and spent a few hours with him while I was teaching. And then the next night was his last night in town. My dad wanted to drive us to Niagara Falls to show him the falls and stuff because it's such a, it's a big touristy thing and just it's a beautiful spot. So we went and checked it out, and then he took the train back the next day, and I was obviously heartbroken, and we kind of started a bit of a long-term relationship, or sorry, long distance relationship at that time. Didn't last long because we're 1,000 or more kilometers apart, and I'm still in high school, so that's okay. We ended up having a falling out not too long after that, and we didn't talk for a year, and then we got reacquainted. I reached back out to him, and then we rekindled our friendship, and we still have feelings for each other. And it was my last year in cadets. We happened to be going to Quebec City that May. We had a citizenship trip every year, so we would go to a new city and check stuff out for the May long weekend. So that year we went back to Quebec, and he had just moved back from training with the military. So he met up Got to see him a couple times, which was super, super cool. And then over the summer, I was working at the African Lion Safari in the playground as kind of like a lifeguard, or I don't playground attendant, they probably called us, but I did have my lifeguarding, even though it wasn't, we didn't have to be certified as lifeguards. So he came to visit me a couple times while I was working there and stuff. And we kind of, yeah, we kind of rekindled and grew, I guess, a romance and started dating that summer just before I went to college. So he helped me move to college that weekend. His sister came with me. She's still one of my like I call her my soul. She's one of my soul sisters. We call each other sis still. We're still like super super close. I love you, girl. And yeah, she's one of those other people that we don't see each other for years and we just laugh the whole time we're together. So, I think regardless of how things turn out with people, whether they're in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, sometimes there's relationships and friendships that you meet through those people that end up being the long lasting ones, and they're just a gift in themselves. So, once I got to college, obviously still long distance, I was busy with my studies and stuff. I did go to visit a few times or we would meet up kind of part way, and but that relationship, it lasted about 8 months. So basically the length of the school year, I was in finals. So I studied photojournalism in college, so we didn't have exams like most other programs, but we did have final projects. So it was very much hands-on and project-based courses. So I was in the middle of all these projects. I think I had 8 courses that semester. It was very stressful, and having my heart broken right at the end of the semester when everything's due, pretty much it put me into a spiral for a few days there. I was able to kind of pull myself together, get everything done. I had a couple girls' nights just to kind of refocus and keep my head on my shoulders and not totally fall into the darkness, because I was very blindsided by it. When I look back, I see things that just kind of weren't right, but at the time, for one, it was my first relationship. He was my first love. He was my first kiss when we were 16 when he came to visit me that week. It was magical in my backyard under the stars. It was like a walk to remember moment, like super, super sweet. So there were a lot of things that I didn't even weren't even on my radar to really kind of look at and say, "Hey, I don't think this is cool." Or I just was in denial, like, that wouldn't happen. I was super, super innocent and just anyway, I don't shame myself for it at all, and realistically, like, it was nothing, like, super, super bad. There were just things. if I was if I was with somebody who was doing those things now, I would be way more aware of it, if you know what I mean. Um, Sorry, I don't mean to be like ominous or whatever that word is. I just I don't want to get into details because it really doesn't matter at this point. It's just the fact that when we're young or innocent, we don't necessarily see kind of the things we maybe should be aware of. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. But it made the breakup probably more shocking for me just because I wasn't fully aware of like everything that was happening. Now, when we broke up, I was still in school. Like I said, I still had my finals and stuff to do. So I was wrapping that up and just kind of trying to wrap my head around it. I remember being so like physically out of sorts. I think I lost 10 pounds. I lost my appetite. I just wanted to sleep all the time. That was difficult. And then when I moved home for the summer, because I had gotten a summer job with my dad's work as a summer student, and that's actually where I met my now husband, which is super funny. And I was looking at my memories, and today was the day that we met for the first time 14 years ago, which is super fun. I still remember that moment. He was standing outside of the lunchroom. There was a table set up with coffee and stuff, and we were doing like a bit of an orientation, and he was getting coffee. And then my friend Ferris, who is another summer student, she'd already worked a season or two. She knew everyone and was introducing me. And I remember that moment I met Eric, which was super fun and cute. So just wanted to plug that since today's the 14-year 14 years since we met for the very first time. So during that summer, and this is kind of what I want to be my main focus, not the complexities or logistics of that relationship. I just wanted to kind of preface it by saying like he was my first love and was super just super into him. Like I lost my identity and in fact, I think when we're at that age, we're at a very impressionable age, right? Because our brains are still developing, we are still influenced by what's around us, although we are starting to discern and question beliefs that we might have based on what other people have kind of influenced us on. But there's still there's so much going on at that time. We're trying to figure out our futures and like who we are. I think most of us have no idea really who we are, not in a very strong way. So having being like throwing yourself so deeply into a relationship and being so tied, having them so tied to your identity is so innocent and easy to come by at that age. And but it was very detrimental to the aftermath, but it launched me into something so much greater, and I'm so grateful for it. So when we broke up, we went through about of a month of kind of I would call him weekly just to be like, "Hey, what's up?" And we decided we were still going to stay friends. And then after that month, I got a phone call. It was my last night in town before I moved home for the summer, and he basically said, "I'm going on exercise with the military. It's over. Don't get your hopes up. We're never getting back together." So that was devastating for me, of course. And he was going to be gone for about a month, I think. So I took that time to start some reflection there and just like dive into my summer job. It was I was grass cutting, I was doing maintenance and painting poles and all kinds of maintenance stuff around the plant that I worked at, which was super fun. And I was with another summer student and he was wonderful, like super supportive of just like me being a total hot mess the whole summer. I don't know how he put up with me, but like so grateful looking back. And so the real point of this episode is how I moved forward. So what I did is I started to like I realized I was in a bit of an identity crisis. Like who am I and like what is left? Because when we end a relationship, when somebody very profound in our life dies, we lose a job, anything that really tie we tie ourselves to as part of our identity and we lose those things, we lose parts of our identity. And the more deeply we're tied to them, the less we feel ourselves after, or the less we know ourselves. So I decided to take the summer and start to explore that. I really started asking myself these questions. So if you find yourself in it, if this resonates with you, these are the kinds of questions I was asking myself. Like, what do I like? What do I not like? And this is like in general, it could be activities, but it could be like, what do I like about myself? What do I not like about myself? For the things that I didn't particularly like about myself, what can I do to shift those things to be more positive? And for the things that I did like about myself or love about myself, how can I make them a staple or kind of embellish them or just make sure that they're a constant in my life? And another thing I mentioned is activities. So I started to explore things that I hadn't done in a while, and I started exploring new things. And it was super magical and I had such a fun summer. Now, don't get me wrong, there were very excruciating days. Most mornings were difficult. I didn't have an appetite in the morning. I was super tired. There was some depression there for sure. It was grief. Really, it really comes down I was grieving the loss of the relationship, I was grieving the loss of that part of myself, and trying to figure out what was left after the relationship ended, because they were such a huge part of my life for some very formative years, right from the age of 14 to 19. So that summer, like I said, I was working for a company doing maintenance stuff. I had weekends off, long weekends and all that stuff. I went to visit friends a couple times up at near Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and I had such a blast. So my one friend lives on a farm. So I started another thing is I started a bucket list of all these silly things I wanted to try. One of them was milking a cow. So my one of my friends lives on a farm, and she took me to her cousin's farm and let me try to milk a cow. Just I wasn't like collecting the milk, but she just showed me how to do it. And the photos of it are hilarious. I was living my life so, so much in those moments of joy when I was outside of my grief, and I was really trying to just live it up, have so much fun. I was visiting friends every weekend and in week evenings and stuff like that. I was just really making the most of it while also exploring myself. And I one really important part of that summer is I took an entire week. I had my phone with me, but it was not on. I was not checking messages. I was not phoning people or texting people. I was not receiving those things. I had it in case there was an emergency. I also did not go on my computer for a week. And during that week, I decided I need to take some space and I need to decide what I want to do going forward. This person was very important to me for a very long time, but also I didn't know if it was going to be healthy to continue to have them in my life, because the first time we kind of dated and we're all love, when I was 16, I after we had the falling out and didn't talk for a year and we got back, my feelings just like I just flooded right back to them, and I thought I don't know if this is healthy for me. I feel like I'll fall back into that, and I don't know if that's what's best for me. So I took a week with no technology. All I did was and I didn't see anyone. I came home after work and just was quiet. I think I watched some Sex in the City, so I watched a little bit of TV maybe, but I wasn't interacting with anyone. That was kind of the important part. I only saw the people at work. And I decided after that week that I was not going to continue a friendship or any sort of kind of interaction with this person, at least for the foreseeable future. So I removed them off of social media. Now, by that point, they were back from training and all the things. I just didn't get in contact with them after, and they didn't get in contact with me. So this is probably like a month or two after that, in midsummer, probably July, when I decided like I need to figure out what I'm doing going forward. Things are going well. I'm enjoying myself. And another thing I'll say to kind of describe that summer is I was kind of dating myself, right? Because I was getting to know myself, and what are those fun parts of me? What are the things I love most about myself? What are the things that I kind of just want to work through? Not to say I have to fix myself, but what are the things that maybe aren't my strengths that I could strengthen? And that was such a big theme for that whole year, just dating myself. And I made a promise to myself after the breakup that I would stay single for a minimum of a year, because I wanted to give myself the time to really unpack the baggage from that whole chapter, and make sure that I wasn't bringing it into my next relationship, whenever that would be. And that was a priority. So I had a situation in college where there was somebody who they liked me, but I wasn't, like I said, I promised myself I wasn't going to date for a year. And we were super close friends and stuff, but I guess I thought I was very clear in my intentions, but I ended up hurting this person unintentionally, and I felt absolutely horrible about it. And what I wanna say about that is, as much as I regret that and I would never intentionally hurt somebody, I had a very profound moment through working through that, both alone and with that person. We came out the other side. They're one of my best friends. And yeah, another person I would say is soul family. But I had a light bulb moment through that situation. And what I realized is sometimes we treat people unkindly, not on purpose to hurt them, but because we don't have the capacity with what we're going through at the time. And especially if we're not super like self-aware of it, it's easy to happen. So what I realized through that situation is what I had done to this person I cared deeply about was the same thing. Likely, I wasn't going to make accusations or anything on my breakup, but the way that I was treated kind of, you know, sometimes throughout that relationship, but definitely near the end was not a reflection on how they necessarily felt about me, but a reflection on what was going on in their life and what they had the capacity for. And it was I just remember getting that realization of like, this really has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with what they're going through in life right now. And I was just kind of caught in the crossfire of it all. And that gave me the awareness and the space to forgive them. And it was in that moment I forgave them and I bawled my eyes out when this all came. It was just like a moment, and then all these things kind of came flooding in, and I was like, holy shit, it was like an epiphany. And it was so there was such a release when that happened. And it was so beautiful, and it was so yeah, it was so beautiful. That's probably the best way I can put it, because I just realized it was okay, and I forgave them, and I put it behind me, and I was there was, but I think it was about a year after we broke up, I did go to Quebec City. I met up with his sister, and I had written a letter. I never sent it, but I did burn it, and I dropped it into water that went over a waterfall, and it was kind of poetic. And I highly recommend, if you have somebody that you're not going to be able to talk to or really speak your truth to, write it down and burn it, obviously safely. There was another time that summer that I wrote some thoughts down and burned it in the backyard, but it that was another thing that really helped me through that time. So so to kind of summarize, because I know I kind of went on a bit of a rant, I hope you're still following and not too all over the place. If you're going through a change, be it a relationship, it could be the end of a friendship that causes grief too, right? Because you're missing times that you've had, times you won't have, and all of those things. But if any of this resonates with you, to kind of summarize the points, if you feel like part of your identity has been lost and you want to go searching for it, start to explore who you are. And the most important part is, when you start looking at those parts of yourself that might make you cringe a little bit or feel a little bit embarrassed or ashamed about, my best advice is to really just look at those parts as they happened, and you can't undo it. So the more we can hold space for ourselves and our past and what we've done without judgment and shame, and just get curious about it, and what can I do today to change, future outcomes so that I don't repeat patterns. That is really the bottom line. The don't shame, like, let's leave out the shame, let's leave out the I mean, you're gonna feel feels. If you're embarrassed, that's okay. But leave out the shame, leave out the judgment, and just say, going forward, this is how I want to do things. And then figure out a plan. Spend time with yourself, date yourself, go to the movies by yourself, go to a restaurant by yourself. What are those things that kind of freak you out? Because that's what's gonna build your confidence and give you the most reflection on who you are, and that's how you get to know yourself. So I did a lot of that summer, along with hanging out with friends, and just starting that mental bucket list of all the weird things. Like I still have shearing sheep on my list. One day I'll get to do that, but it really began my journey at personal development, looking at that kind of dark shadow side, but with love and compassion, because when you can kind of like hug that former self and give them that compassion and empathy, having moved through stuff in life and realizing maybe it wasn't your finest moments, but you can do things going forward to make yourself proud going forward. That's really that's all that counts. So I'm gonna leave it here. I hope that wasn't too like disheveled. And I'm looking forward to our next episode. I've got a couple master classes I need to edit and post on here. We'll get a couple more meditations. If you have any requests, let me know. You can reach out to me on Instagram at MZZ, like Ms. Lauren, Lauren, Gilhula, Gilhula. You can yeah, that's probably the best spot to find me, or if you find me on Facebook. And I do have my Living on Lemonade community on Facebook that you can join. I do a monthly masterclass. May 30th will be the next masterclass. It's going to be about intuition. And I am working on rebranding and relaunching my Create Your Calm. It's going to be self-study this time because I'm moving into the busy season with work, so I won't have the time to do it live. So I'm going to record the modules and release it as a self-study course. So if that interests you, it's going to be on subjects such as stress in the nervous system, mindfulness, meditation, burnout and resilience, and I'm missing one. It's attachment and surrender. It's basically just an intro to all of these subjects. So if this is something you want to explore, it's going to be $111 and you'll have lifetime access. And yeah, so I will be posting more on that on social media if you follow me. Otherwise, reach out if you're interested. I'll have a wait list for when I'm ready. Again, I've been sick, so I haven't been up to recording modules. I've just been trying to move through these colds. So very soon, I know I keep pushing back the date, but I also think it's important that we honor where we're at in our health, like health and wellness journey too, and not really push ourselves beyond what we have the capacity for. So I've been learning that it's not always easy, but I have been practicing this surrender. I'm practicing what I preach. So I hope everyone's having a good one and hanging in there with whatever life stuff is going on. And I'll see you inside the next episode.